Hello, and welcome everybody to this week's panel of UNSW's Science Podcast. I'm your host, Olivia, and today we have some very special guests who are here to discuss why elephants are less susceptible to cancer. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Olivia, for having us.
Now, to start off, we have our guest Jacqueline from UNSW with a PhD in mammalian oncology. Could you give us an overview of what cancer is exactly?
Yes, of course. So, cancer is a disease that causes uncontrollable growth and division of abnormal cells, often as a result of mutations that occur in cell division. This will often lead to the formation of malignant tumours that can become invasive and life-threatening. So, in a healthy animal, cell division and functional proteins are crucial for the facilitation of growth and repair of new cells, as well as inducing cell death to prevent abnormal cells from proliferating and forming cancerous tumours. A really important group of proteins that help with inducing cell death and preventing tumours are tumour suppressor proteins that are coded by tumour suppressor genes.
These tumour suppressor genes sound important. How do they work, and are there specific genes that are important in relation to cancer?
You're right, they are important. In relation to cancer, more specifically, a tumour suppressor gene called TP53, which codes for the protein P53, is crucial for the recognition of abnormal cells and the regulation of the cell cycle to suppress the development of cancerous tumours. During cell division, normal TP53 acts as the guardian of the genome. It examines DNA damage points in phase G1 of the cell cycle to monitor the integrity of the genome. If P53 recognizes an abnormal cell, it induces apoptosis and cell cycle arrest to interrupt the abnormal cell proliferation.
Wow, that's awesome. I noticed you mentioned normal TP53, but what happens if TP53 isn't normal?
Well, that's an excellent question because the mutation of TP53 can cause inactive and dysfunctional P53 proteins that lead to, you guessed it, cancer. Cancer in animals is very often a result of mutations in TP53 genes, which leads to abnormal cells to continue to replicate uncontrollably during cell division, forming cancerous tumours. We'll get to see the significance of these genes even more, especially in elephants, later on.
You mentioned that cancer is a result of mutations that occur during cell division. What's interesting is that today's topic is why elephants are less likely to get cancer. So we move to Can, who is currently finishing their PhD in cell-mediated immunity. Can you explain why elephants are one of the largest mammals with significantly greater cell mass and hence more cell divisions? Wouldn't that increase the likelihood of mutations occurring and increase the chance of elephants getting cancer?
That's a great question. And in fact, many researchers have also asked this question and have tried to explain this phenomenon. In 1977, a British epidemiologist, Richard Peto, actually conducted a study where he looked at the relationship between body mass and cancer in humans and mice. He surprisingly observed that there was no correlation between body size and cancer risk. This phenomenon, now called Peto's paradox, has formed the basis of many studies that aim to identify and understand the specific cancer-resistant mechanisms in animals, such as elephants, that allow for this phenomenon to occur.
Wow, that's so interesting. So, what is the comparison between elephant cancer rates compared to humans?
So, cancer mortality in elephants is estimated to be less than 5%, compared to the 11 to 25% for humans, despite being 100 times the cell mass of them.
That's quite the difference. I direct my next question to Qingyun Zi with a PhD in cell genomics. So, elephants must have some kind of cancer-resistant mechanism that keeps their cancer rates down. Do we have any evidence of this?
In fact, we do. Many animals have the gene mentioned before, the TP53, but elephants and the larger mammals alike have many more copies of these genes compared to humans. Specifically, there are 20 copies of the tumor suppressor gene found in an elephant's genome, compared to the human's single copy.
Wow. So I guess it makes sense why they're so much more resistant. How do these copies specifically help an average elephant?
See, the thing is, although elephants have so many copies, not all of them are perfectly functional or even active. Only 19 of the retrogenes have been found to be active currently, but amongst these copies, they've only been found to be slightly active, missing some key DNA binding sites and other functions, even though they might not all work as well as the original gene, or even produce the p53 protein. It's been suggested that some could work as non-functional decoys to assist in deterioration. So, it's likely the additional copies are still useful to the elephant.
So do any of them produce the actual protein?
In a study conducted in 2016, it was found that about 14 of the 19 retrogenes have been found to actually produce the protein, albeit stunted variants. The multitude of variants definitely increase the rate of cell death in turn, will limit cancerous cell growth in elephants.
Alright, that makes sense. So is there anything fundamentally different about the elephant's version of the gene, or is it practically identical to the human variant?
Even though there hasn't been much research into it, there was a study done in 2017 that showed a slight difference in larger mammals compared to humans. The atypical feature focuses on the loop2 coin domain, but it is still unsure what exactly this attributes to the cancer resistance of elephants and whales.
These studies are very interesting. My understanding is that whilst there is scientific knowledge supporting the current TP53 gene theory, there remains limitations of current knowledge. Would you be able to elaborate what these potential limitations are?
Yes, well, the current knowledge of imposed mechanisms of cancer resistance in elephants is a well-developed theory. However, it remains generally unknown the associated mechanisms and patterns of evolution which lead to the cancer-suppressing gene TP53 being favored in elephants and the associated effect. This is particularly key when understanding the genetic differences between species, in particular humans. Scientists also struggle with data collection. We have a large amount of data on cancer prevalence in humans, however, large species like elephants pose difficulties for sourcing data. This can really limit what we know and the variability of sample sizes. Another area with limited knowledge is the extent that the TP53 gene works to prevent cancer development in large mammals, and what other factors inhibit the cell growth in elephants.
In light of those various limitations, what future research is needed in order to improve the scientific knowledge about the TP53 gene and long-term applications of this knowledge?
Absolutely, there are different areas where future research is needed. Firstly, deeper analysis of the TP53 gene and patterns of inheritance with cancer would be very important. This would allow scientists to establish whether the TP53 gene is responsible for the decreased cancer rates. Once this is understood, it would allow scientists to obtain a greater understanding of the cancer-reducing mechanisms imposed by elephants and other large mammals. This knowledge would also be extremely useful, as the findings could be used to help treat cancer in humans.
Well, that's all we have time for today. I would like to thank our guests for joining me and informing us on why elephants have such low rates of cancer. Stay tuned for next week's panel, where we discuss the future of stem cell research. Once again, I'm your host, Olivia. See you at the same time next week.